How's everybody doing? Yeah? Okay, I got 15 minutes during lunch. Today's topic is, navigating today's business climate to achieve growth. It's fair to say that the economy today is one that is bouncing around, and sometimes it's hard to keep track of. Before I get started, I do want a big shout out to Stuart Butler and the team for putting this team together. He's worked tirelessly. Let's give it up for Stuart Butler. So, what about Bob? So a little bit about me. I was born in New Delhi, India. My parents exported me to Canada at the age of 1. My first business was in media and hospitality, so I had a paper route. That was supposed to be funny. Started my first barter company when I was 22 years old, called Barter Business Exchange. We took that public in '99, exited as ubarter.com, and then I co-founded BizX with Chris Hidawi, my business partner over here. And when I'm not working in BizX, I'm a dad of 3, I'm an Uber driver, and a guitar roadie. So that's a little bit about me. So, a little bit about us. BizX, we've been around since 2002. We've done over $1 billion in transactions on our platform, and that's resulted in helping our members generate over $500 million in new sales, as well as cash savings. Some of our members, and you've probably seen them around here, some recognizable names. But to me, and the reason why I'm so passionate about what we do, it's small business. And I don't know if you know this, but small business represents employs over 60 million people in the United States. And it's 99.7% of all businesses in the United States, 48% of employees. So it's a big deal. And to me, that's what we're all about, why we're in our business. So, navigating the economy, what's going on in the economy today? There's a lot. So you've got rising interest rates. Anybody been impacted by that? Raise your hands. We've got, I hear there's an election coming up in a few months. You might have heard about it on the news. This thing called inflation. Is it up? Is it down? What's going on? There's a labor shortage in certain industries. It's hard to hire. And then there's geopolitical concerns. There's just all this stuff going on around the world. These are all things that I can't control, you can't control, none of us can control in our business. So how do you grow with all these things going around? And so that's what today is about. And I'm going to talk about 3 things that you should be looking at in order to do that. So as we get in, we also feel, we talked about small business, there's a huge disconnect between Main Street and Wall Street. Would you agree? Who here would agree with me when I say Wall Street and Main Street are disconnected? Raise your hands. Okay. So we see these headlines, same day, Dow is up, and 1/3 of small business owners, if their company will survive. You know, it's just like a tale of 2 cities. And it goes beyond just small business, just local communities. You know, and I call it and then you've got the whiplash effect. Oh, you know, things are, who here has gotten into a situation where, okay, we think it's going to go really well, business is down, we're waiting for that big order, and then they want it yesterday, and here you go, and then now we're waiting 3 months again. Hurry up and wait. Anybody run into that? Okay, I think that's turning into the new normal in some cases. So, this was just a thought of an article that I had written in 2022 about how you could prepare for the probable recession. And what's interesting is that nobody said we're officially in a recession right now. This is down. So there's a lot of spin to everything that goes on as well. So I think, putting all that aside, what can you do? How do you focus on your business? How are you going to grow? So, is winter coming or is winter here? Who here thinks winter is here already? Raise your hand. Okay. Who here's business is grown in the last 12 months? Raise your hand. Okay. And who here is optimistic about 2024? Okay. So it's, is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? And so these are the three items that I feel, from what I have seen, are the most important with any small business to be able to get into growth in these choppy times. And the first is, stabilize, optimize, and grow. And so the first thing you want to do is make sure your business is stable, and it's a great time to be able to look to see, what's going on with that. And the number one thing to stabilize your business that you want to make sure of, especially in times like this, is cash flow. Cash flow is the oxygen, it's the lifeblood of your business, hands down. Without it, you're not operating. So that's the number one thing you want to make sure, and that's the number one thing I would say you want to do to make sure that you're stabilized. And in addition to that, how are things that you can, there's some ideas here, there's so many more, but everything from, are your prices where they need to be after all the inflation, to do you have access to lines of credits? Are you getting paid fast enough? Can you negotiate better terms? There's a long list, but they only gave me 15 minutes. Cash flow, and we can talk offline. Google it. But look at that. The second thing you want to look at is optimize. Okay, so how do you, once that you've stabilized, how do you optimize and ensure that you are getting the most out of the resources in your organization? And again, when you look at optimize, the first thing that I say is take care of your customers. It's the number one thing that you can do, is to make sure that you want to take care of your customers, because if you don't, somebody else will. Make sure you have A players on your team. And the one we're going to talk about a little bit more is identify your excess capacity and inventory. Discontinue non-profitable businesses, increase prices if warranted. There's a number of things that you can do to optimize, but it's that optimization mindset, I would say. And then the third thing that you have that you want to be looking at is, how do you grow? And so during times like this, when business is up or down and unpredictable, what is your competition doing? And in difficult times, business may be down. In some sectors, we've seen it down 25, 30%. And we've seen at the same time other competitors grow their market share. Do you follow me? The ability to be able to grow your market share in a down economy. Does that make sense? And so what is your competition doing during that time? So some of them are doing nothing. Okay? They're just doing nothing. It's nothing has changed. They're kind of looking down at their feet. It's like, well, the phone's not ringing. It's the economy. Have you ever heard that? Well, how are sales? Well, the economy's slow, so, I'm going to wait till it comes back. You know what I'm talking about? That's a passive approach, and people do that out there, and your competitors are doing that. Some will call it quits. They're going to close during, that time. And then some are going to grow, and it really starts with a growth mindset. And some of the biggest businesses out there were built during a down economy. Because what happens is, let's say business is down 25% in your sector, right? There's still 75% of the business out there to go and get. And the ones that with a growth mindset that are investing are going to be able to take that market share away from the previous two mindsets that we talked about. The guys that are doing nothing, and the guys maybe that are gone out of business, etc. It's the time to get aggressive, but you want to do it smart. And so these are some companies, some examples of companies that started and thrived during a downturn. Microsoft, Apple, Netflix, these are all companies that did that. And remember, every big business, whether it was Amazon or it's Apple, was a small business one day. So they all started small, became big. And so we're going to talk about a specific strategy that we think, that we focus on really how to grow using what you have during these times. And so, like I said, growth mindset, you can go after market share. Who's your ideal customer? It's the time to invest in marketing, and you want to be creative in marketing, monetizing excess capacity, and we're going to talk about that. So we believe, and we've seen this, is businesses are richer than they think they are. And they've got a lot of wealth that's untapped. And this is where our business comes in to help. But it's all about monetizing your excess capacity. And that could be the most profitable thing that you can do. And most businesses today don't look at that number. They don't look at how much in sales we're leaving on the table. So we just kind of take the equation and look it backwards. And so how much excess capacity is there? I'm going to throw some big numbers out. The GDP in the United States is $23 trillion. We operate at 79% utilization, right? So that means there's $6.1 trillion of underutilized goods and services going to waste. And that's, empty seats on an airplane, empty hotel rooms, empty bookings in the doctor's office, etc. So that's a big macro level. How do we bring it down to your business? What's that mean for you? And so for a restaurant, that could be unfilled tables. For a caterer, it's unbilled hours or jobs. For a hotel, it's empty rooms. For a venue, it's nights that you're dark. For a vintner, it's unsold bottles of wine and memberships. There's so much excess capacity. And so how do you calculate that and monetize that? So here's an equation. Assume you have 100 tables in a restaurant. 75 are filled all the time. You have 2 seatings on average per day. Average, $80 average check. Is this all making sense? You guys following me? How much money do you think the restaurant's leaving on the table unsold? That number comes down to $1.4 million in lost revenue for that restaurant. It's a lot of money. And so how do you take that $1.4 million and put it to work? And so that's kind of how we look at things. How much money are you leaving on the table? And so it really comes down to, in a business, you've got fixed costs and variable costs, and the restaurant's paying for all their expenses anyways, so the only thing that changes when they sell the $1.4 million in goods that are going unsold are things like their food costs. And the bottom line for a restaurant like this, if that restaurant was able to generate $100,000 in new sales out of that 1.4 million that was going unsold, assuming a 30% cost of goods, that would generate an extra $70,000 in cash flow for that business, allowing them to grow and do things. And so, like I said, most businesses are richer than they think. Now, if you're sold out in your business and you can't get into your restaurant for 6 months and you've got a lineup of customers, you're turning people away, this is not an equation for you. You don't have this problem. But if you have overhead and you have more customers than you can take, you really ought to be looking at how much money you are leaving on the table and then looking at unique ways that you could monetize that. And I think they're giving me the signal here, so, okay. They said I can go over. Like I said, monetizing excess capacity can be the most profitable thing that you can do. And I'm going to leave this with you, kind of solving for this. And this is the way, how do people solve for it? So they discount, right? Everybody here, Tuesday nights, you get a better deal. Promotions. Anybody heard of this company called Groupon? That was another thing that people did. They donate. Hey, we'll give to the community. They'll write it off. It just goes dark. Or One of the other ways that they solve this problem is through barter, and that's what we do. But remember, discounting, and suddenly, you know, something that was $100, it's $50, now it's a $50 item. By the way, does anybody here know what Louis Vuitton does with their excess inventory? What? They burn it. It will never go on sale because it hurts their brand. They literally will incinerate it. They'd rather have, they don't want 70 cents in the dollar, they want 100 cents in the dollar or nobody gets it. That's how protective they are of their brand. So you want to think about that. And so one of the solutions that you have is, we talked about allowing businesses trade what they have, that excess, for what they need. And so that's what we do in our business. And barter has been around forever. It represents a third of the world's commerce. From when Pepsi went into Russia, they got paid with ships full of vodka in exchange for their marketing rights. And so, has anybody here ever done something where they've traded something for something they had for something they needed? Here, here, here. Okay. So there's formal ways to do this, and I'm going to wrap things up here. But I want to say thank you, and I really encourage you to look at those 3 strategies in summary and calculate that number. If there's nothing that you take away from this is calculate how much money you potentially are leaving on the table, and then get creative. It doesn't have to be this solution. There could be a different solution, but it's, you know, they say in solving the problem, the first step is identifying what the problem is. And so look at how much money you are leaving on the table and get creative with it. And thank you very much.